to Oakland, which everyone knows the Bay Area traffic is horrible. And I can only listen to so much Pandora or, Google Play Music, any of those radio stations. You only listen to so much. And then that's when I started getting into podcasts. And, I started with Joe Rogan. But the ones that really piqued my interest was Phoebe Judge and how she would explore cases, that were of wrongfully accused people. Or that was, I don't know.
Well, I think her approach to it is, it's very simplified. You could follow along with it. She tried to talk to, people that had a first person account, which I think lends a lot of credibility when you're talking about something. If you can talk to a source that is involved or the actual source, that really gets the right story out there. It's not just a bunch of people speculating about this is what we heard happen and or digesting a police report and trying to interpret that. She really, wanted to get the source straight, and she gave you the information that actually meant something. It wasn't bullshit. It was, here I'm talking to the person that knows, or I'm talking to somebody who has an insight on this.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I appreciated that show. You maybe probably turned it on and I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. Oh, I got a lot of resistance. A lot.
Yeah, but that's my natural reaction to anything that I don't find or I don't want to do is, what the hell is this? I don't want to do this.
Oh, no, yeah, I know.
Okay, well, I'm glad you know that. After 20 years of, 20 plus of us being together, you should know this about me. And if I didn't say it then, I'm glad that you forced me to continue listening.
Well, I had a captive audience. Usually when the reason I would do it is because I would commute and then I was like, oh, maybe my wife would like to hear this. Or I found it very fascinating. But then when we would go to the casino or we would go to Cache Creek, I'd have a captive audience at least for 45 minutes. And that's about how long the episodes were. Some of them were longer, maybe even 2 parts. But, it was something to fill the void, of even traveling, we would go to Cache Creek, and it's about a 45-minute drive for us, and that's about how long the episodes were. But, it was also that turnaround drive. We could listen to the second half. So there was something, even if we lost all our money, we would have something to look forward to on the drive
Phoebe
home.
Judge was our consolation prize.
That's correct. Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
I do appreciate that we had that time together. And even if we went up there and won nothing and we were coming home, we'd get in the car and just kind of settle in and listen to a good story. Yeah. And then I think that too, that planted the seed for you. I don't have much time in a car, to be honest with you. I catch snippets of things here and there. And then when I'm at home, I don't put earbuds in and listen to things. Yeah. So I don't have, I haven't been getting into depth into a lot of podcasts up until maybe within the last year. So I think when we moved to Washington, that really kind of sparked for me, I guess, just kind of ignited.
Yeah.
The flame was kind of lowly burning with Phoebe Judge and Criminal, and then it just kind of started again. And you introduced me to my favorite murder.
Yes.
And I'm obsessed.
Yes.
Completely obsessed.
Well, yeah, again, when we moved here to Washington, for me, again, we moved about the same amount of miles and I was commuting. And again, it was that. But, I had wanted to, I don't know why, I started listening to Joe Rogan. I'd always listen to Joe Rogan, but I wanted to expand and I was like, let's see what else is out there. So I spread my proverbial podcast wings and stayed within the realm of true crime and everything like that. But I found My Favorite Murder. And yeah, it's a pretty entertaining show. They're down to earth and hey, maybe we could talk about something like that. But and it's very entertaining. It's not just them, reciting facts and things like that. But
no, they definitely put their spin on it. And I would never want to intentionally sound like any of the other podcasts that we've listened to, but I just know that they, I can appreciate that they consider themselves a true crime comedy podcast.
Yes.
Because, while these things that we talk about are going to be very upsetting and sad, they're just sad.
Yeah.
It's delving into an aspect of human nature that fascinates me. How do people do this? How do people up and decide to murder somebody for no reason, or feel that they're justified to horrifically dismantle a body?
Yeah.
It's delving into that human nature that, is kind of going to be our spin, I think, is how do people get this way? What happens? Like, what's the backstory? And that's kind of what I want us to look at more. There's going to be some times when I'm sure I say very flippant things, but I don't want to in any way, like I said, I don't want to in any way come across disrespectful.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that they skip that line, or skirt that line. They, can do it gracefully, and they bring an aspect of comedy to it that kind of lightens the mood. So I'm definitely been obsessed with that. And I think when we moved here, that kind of listening to that podcast, and then it was like one thing after another. I mean, you had that experience.
Yeah. And we actually, and this is what it led to it, we actually decided to start undertaking this podcast because of, I don't know what you call serendipity. I don't know what you would call it. But like we moved to Washington. We moved to, I decided to take a job in Seattle, Washington. And when we moved here, it was just like all of a sudden we started hearing about all these murders or, killings.
Like horrific crimes.
Yeah, not just like...
Or weird shit. Like weird
very
crimes.
Weird shit. And it was just like all of a sudden in the span of less than 6 months we had been here, we started hearing it was like specific stories about Washington. I turned on Netflix and there was that one about... it was an unsolved mystery in Chehalis, and I think it was Ed and Minnie. They were murdered at their house, but they were found.
That was part of the wasn't it the cold case?
Cold case files. Yeah, and then we listened to some more podcasts. Like the Murder Squad, and they had talked about missing and indigenous women and how Seattle was like the number one place in the nation for not just women, but also indigenous women missing. And then, I think on My Favorite Murder, we like right after that, we had heard, or I had heard about an assassination, like an assassin in the area. And I was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What the hell did we get into? And there was a couple other stories too. But the biggest one that really launched it was for me when we moved to Washington, and I reported before, Jess and the kids moved up. I stayed in a hotel, and like I drove from California to Washington. And like I said, this is what really sparked it, where I was just like, what the fuck is going on here? And when I checked into the hotel, it was like 1:00 in the morning. The drive took a little bit longer than I thought, and I got there at 1:00 in the morning, checked in. He gave me my keys, and so he said, "Oh yeah, it's around the corner." And I took my motorcycle and I drove around to the side and walked up to the door, and the guy had met me at the door. And at 1:00 in the morning, I was like, "What the fuck?"
I just don't know why I'm still confused as to why he thought that was okay. Like, you didn't give him your luggage or anything like that. No. And you didn't ask for like extra towels or...
No.
I don't know. Like, just, hey, howdy ho. I don't know.
Yeah. And the first thing he says to me, he's like, oh yeah. And he points across behind so where my door faces, I guess it's the Green River. And, being new to Washington, I don't know where I am. I don't know what is around me. I'm brand new. Never been here. Never lived here. So he points to me and says, oh yeah, across the river there, that's where the Sounders practice. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm not really big into soccer. I, apologize to anyone, but it's just not for me. And then, I was like, okay, thanks. I was like, oh, cool. Trying to be polite. And he goes, oh yeah, and that's the Green River where all the bodies were found from the Green River Killer. And I was all, in my head, I automatically thought this guy's going to kill me. I was like, it's 1:30 in the morning, and this is the second thing he says to me.
This is a copycat or something.
In passing. And I was like, I'm going to go in my room now. And then, he tells me, oh, it's a brand new room. You're the first one staying in it. I was just like, cool, thank you. And then I didn't realize, I walked in there. It is brand new. It still smelled like paint and all brand new appliances. And it was kind of like an extended stay. But I didn't know what it was there was a backsliding door to it, which led to everything was in a circle. And I could see him walking away, but also looking back, which I was like, Jesus Christ.
Oh, my God.
This guy's going to come back and fucking kill me. And I was glad I looked out the back because I didn't think there was a back door.
Why would you? That's not normal.
Yeah. Most hotels, motels, they don't have a back door. But I recognized that there was curtains back there. And I was like, what the hell is this?
Or if they have one, it goes to like a secluded patio.
Yeah. No, this one was an open campus. I had my own little pad out there, but I made sure that the backsliding door was locked. And yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, once you told me that story and I was kind of like, Jesus, where the hell are we going? What did we get it ourselves into? Are we gonna be safe? Are we gonna be okay? And I mean, I have been to Seattle before. I'd come up and visit my aunt who had lived here when I was about 12 or 13, and I thought it was great. I thought it was, cool place to come and hang out, and hadn't been able to come back other than layovers at the airport. I've never really come back and visited as an adult. I knew nothing about any of that at all. Yeah. And it just seemed the second we got here, it just seemed to be, oh, and this happened in Washington. And I mean, there's one that I watched on, it was on the ID channel, I think. One episode, I'm watching repeat episodes are coming up, and I'm just like house cleaning or something. And third episode into watching, binge watching, shows a picture of the gas station that's just down the street from us. And they're talking about, have you seen this missing woman? And I kind of stopped what I was doing, looked at the TV, and just kind of had a moment where I couldn't process anything. And I'm thinking, I've never lived someplace where it showed up on a TV show other than the news of, here's this crime that happened. Have you seen this person? Or do you have any leads? Or, and I'm thinking, what in the hell? This is just up the street from where we are. And, it happened years ago, but it's one of those things where you don't expect to see your little neighborhood on a national televised program. Yeah. And the more and more we got into these things, the more we found. So here we are now. I mean, we had at one point thought, I kept saying we could do a podcast. We could talk about all these crazy things that we're finding. Yeah. And then I was kind of like, we won't start a podcast. Who wants to listen to us? Who wants to hear my voice? I don't even know what we would say. Are we interesting? I don't know. And we may not be, but I think that we, a lot of things that you may not know, and we can talk about them. Yeah. We just want to discuss what happens here. Not just Washington, but, kind of the Pacific Northwest. Yes. Originally, we had just decided that we were going to name the podcast What the Fuck Washington. Yeah. Because literally every time something came up, we would say, what the fuck? Yeah. What the actual fuck is going on? Yeah. But we nixed that.
Yeah. I think if we continue this, that it was, a bigger picture, and what happens in the woods is a lot broader, and we could talk about more things, not just here in Washington, but I will say it's going to start here in Washington, and a lot of it happens here. Because like I said, I had never heard of the Green River Killer. You hear of Ted Bundy, but I had never heard of the Green River Killer even in California, So.
Yeah, no, I'd never. And so that actually is going to be, this is our first official episode our Hey, what's up? That will be episode number 2.